Hello everyone and welcome back to another session of Elden Ring PvP and another weapon showcase. Today we are taking a look at the Vulgar Militia Shotel. This weapon is one that I'm quite fond of. It is one that I like using a lot against people who are using great shields. And there are a couple of reasons for that. The biggest reason is that the weapon itself does have the ability to pierce shields. So, because of that, when you put on something like Ice Spear, that also gets the ability to pierce shields. And that can lead to some very, very good situations. I put up a video the other day, I'll have a link to it. It basically showcases how well this weapon works against opponents who are using great shields, especially the fingerprint shield, as their primary weapon. That said, this is a weapon that you get by, unfortunately, farming. It is dropped by the Vulgar Militant enemies. You can find them in a few locations throughout the game. I think one of the better places to farm this is south of where Garank is in the Dragon Barrow. But other than that, there are a few other locations, but I think that's probably the best one. When you do get the weapon, it does have Spinning Slash on by default. It requires 14 strength and 16 dexterity in order to wield, and it weighs 8 units. At plus 25, there's a bit going on with it that's a little bit misleading. So, with the scaling on the weapon, a lot of the different upgrade paths have different scalings, of course, but a lot of them also will still say they have an A scaling in dexterity. Specifically, Bleed and Poison will say that they have an A scaling still, and they do. However, there are different tiers to scaling. So even though that is an A, there's higher tiered A's and lower tiered A's, and the weapon itself is actually best on a quality build with the quality upgrade path, getting a B scaling in both strength and dex, and a base damage of 237. When on Keen, it has an E scaling in strength and an A scaling in dexterity, and this is really where it sort of shows how much of a difference a high tiered A versus a low tiered A is. The base damage on it is 255. However, with the heavy upgrade path, the base damage is 272 and it still has an A scaling but in strength. The thing is, the Keen upgrade path at 55 dexterity will outdamage the heavy upgrade path on 55 strength because it's a higher tiered A. And the same holds true with the Poison and Bleed upgrade path. It's a lower tiered A on those as well. Usually it's something to the tune of around 40 to 50 damage, or rather attack rating, difference between the Keen and the status effect path. So, I personally think that the damage is more worthwhile as opposed to the status effect buildup. Let me know what you guys think. That said, pros of the weapon. First and foremost, shield piercing. It's pretty straightforward. It lets you chip damage through shields. If you have this weapon on an elemental path, that chip damage will be even higher, and that's not a bad thing. It's something worth keeping in mind. I think that basically every build with the stats to wield this thing should have one. That's how valuable I think this weapon is. The running R1 attacks are also going to be a pro. They do work with the Spear Talisman, so of course, counter damage. You know, I love the counter damage. Not much of a shock there. And beyond that, Ice Spear with this weapon just destroys shield users. It's phenomenal. But other than that, there's really not too much good going on with it. It's a halberd, so of course it's got the standard halberd pros. The running attacks are good. Both the R1 and R2 are good. Backstep attacks are good. But that's really all that there is for it as far as pros. The big thing is that it does have shield piercing. Aside from that, though, cons, well, there's a number. First off, compared to the other weapons in its class, it is short. Like, it is really, really short. Like, after I played a bit for recording this one, I ended up playing with Loretta's Warsicle, and that weapon is so long in comparison, it just made me realize how short this one really, truly is. So that's not a good thing. But aside from that, the R1 attacks are the same as Lucerne. So that basically means that they're super easy to parry, and you really got to be careful with doing that. You can't just rely on those R1s. You really need to mix in your running attacks. You really need to mix in your R2s, jump attacks, so on and so on. You can't just go up to someone and press R1 because it's such a telegraphed move that you could parry it without really any effort. So be mindful, be careful, pay attention to what you're doing. That said, I feel like the weapons moveset, aside from the R1s, is plenty good to the point where it balances out, and I feel like the pros outweigh the cons. This weapon is a good weapon to have as a backup in the event that you do run into someone who is using a shield as a primary weapon. There are lighter options that can also do this. The standard Shotel will work. The Nox Flowing Sword will work. However, with this one, compared to those other two, it has a longer reach, which means that you'll be able to do a running attack at your opponent when they're putting their shield up, and you'll be able to get in and out much more easily, simply due to the fact that you don't have to get right up on top of them to hit them. You still will want to do that if you're going to be going for the Ice Spear, because it's got that part 1 and part 2 of its attack. The initial spin up has a hitbox, as well as the spear itself being thrown having a hitbox. But the point remains, it's still something that really excels at dealing with opponents who are using a shield, whether it's using a shield as a primary weapon or using a shield for the sake of just blocking and turtle poking. It is really, it's kind of necessary, I would say, because of how powerful the fingerprint shield really is. But anyway, I've rambled on long enough about this weapon. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video, found it helpful in one way or another. Please like, subscribe, and all of that good stuff, and I'll see you guys next time.